Well, looky here. Who do I have with me today on Solutions with Aquarius Rising Africa? Hello, beautiful Brice. And I know we're supposed to do Wellness Wednesday, which we've missed so many weeks of, but now we're on Wellness Thursday just for this week. So I am so delighted to have you back. How are you, gorgeous?
I am good. I'm really, really good. I'm still laughing, guys. Before we went live, we were laughing about our hair, and I was telling them I saw somebody left a comment on somebody's channel that the person looked like a Victorian ghost child. And so every time before I film, I'm like, I hope I don't look like a Victorian ghost child. Like I need more makeup on or something. So
That's quite scary. Guys, be kind, okay? Please just
I actually laughed at that comment. I was like, that is
I
the
was,
funniest Victorian ghost
I was
child.
saying, humanity goddesses, please just be in charge for the next 90 effing minutes.
It's so hard to see yourself while you're filming because you're constantly like, oh, what is my hair doing? Never
Okay.
mind that you're live, but
We're gonna try and get past this bad hair day here today.
oh, you always look beautiful, Shanti. You always look beautiful. So,
Oh, Brian, you're just so lovely. I always feel beautiful when I'm with you anyway, just because
aw.
you.
I will say something funny once. So most people know what most of us have ring lights, right? So I have a big ring light right here. If I turned it off, it would not be, I mean, it's pretty dark. So that's my ring light. And I had somebody accuse me of being a heroin addict because my pupils were doing something funny because of the ring light. And I was like, never done that in my life, but that's the ring light.
No, yeah, we
It's
do.
conspiracies that are created that it's amazing. So,
Please, let's leave our ring lights. We can't be fighting with them. They're like,
I know the ring lights save us, guys. If the good ring light, a good ring light will make you look like 10 years younger. So,
Christ, stop giving away our damn secrets
I know,
already.
a little life hack right here.
Some things are sacred knowledge, okay? A ring light is one of them.
That's the esoteric secret is the ring light. You too can have it. Just go on Amazon, $9.99. No. So,
Wonderful. How lovely. Okay, well, so happy to have you back. And hey, guys, Dawn, Scotty D, so awesome to see you, our regulars. Wonderful to have you guys in the chat room. Because today our topic is literally being your own watcher. Now, it is such an important thing to be able to do that. You know, it's really what I always talk about is practicing discernment, right? And when we can get to that place of realizing everything we're attracting or creating literally is our attraction and creation.
yeah.
And the reason why that is because our thoughts, feelings, emotions, experiences, responses, karma, whatever it is that lives within you and never ever dies, has its own frequency. And that is your output. So everything in life is frequency. So when you are, whatever it is that's inside of you is like an invisible magnet going to create this energy around you that attracts or repels. So when we understand that, and that everything in our life, even from the moment we were conceived in the womb, has been our choice and our creation. So when we understand that, we then move to a whole different level of awareness. And that's when the monkey mind stops, the anger stops, the blame stops, the pain stops, the injustice stops. We kind of get a sense of knowing and a sense of deeper understanding. And from that point, we are then able to observe. It's like I always say, it's like you step back
Mm-hmm.
from your own thoughts and like it's watching a television or a movie or something. and that you're able to observe your thoughts, and you're
Right.
then able to see how you're thinking and what energetic pattern and ripple effect your thoughts actually create. So it's really better to align your thoughts in a more positive, productive way. So I just wanted to give the synopsis of that's my understanding around that. So I know we're going to be looking at some of the yoga sutras and stuff with you as well that align with that and kind of give the steps to it, because that really is what yoga is. It's incredible. It's such an amazing spiritual practice when you actually go deeper into the teachings of yoga as well. It's
Yeah.
amazing. So over to you, beautiful Brice, looking
That's
all
the
gorgeous
whole.
in orange.
Oh, I know. This is my favorite colors. That's the whole crux of yoga, really, is being your own observer. And I see so much chatter about yoga, these just really not true statements being made. And so I always encourage people just to read the Yoga Sutras. This is a 5,000-year-old text that was written by this dude named Patanjali. And he in the sutras, it comes across like he's a scientist, and he basically is studying what separates us from God. Now, when we look at the idea of being the observer and being the watcher, we're actually looking, and this is something that came up in the Divine Sophia book that I'm doing on my channel, this idea of transcendence versus immanence. So what do I mean by this? Transcendence is what the Abrahamic religions teach, like Christianity, Islam, Judaism. They teach you, and I actually remember growing up in church and seeing the bulletin board in Sunday school where they would draw like two different cliffs with like a space in between, and you were here and God was here, and Jesus was that leap to God, that you were separated from God, and that you have to do these things to be connected with God. And this type of mentality is, first of all, not what the Christ taught. The Christ taught immanence, not transcendence. Transcendence is what causes lots of feelings of shame, guilt, jealousy, war. That's why the Abrahamic faiths are, I mean, Christianity has more blood on its hand than any other religion, and it's because of how that internal dialogue, when you feel like you are so separate from God that you have to do all these things, and if something bad happens, then God's punishing you. That causes these feelings of shame. Whereas Yahshua, the Christ, and the Eastern faiths teach something called immanence. Well, immanence means that God is omnipresent, that God is in you, always has been in you. You are a fractal of God. And part of what yoga is telling you in this idea of being the observer, being the watcher, is that part of your suffering is that you've forgotten that. You've forgotten that you are actually a fractal of God. And one of the most
Absolutely.
liberating things about yoga, in my opinion, when you're coming from a faith that's more focus and transcendence, is that when interesting things happen, or bad things, quote unquote, happen, sometimes we think, oh shit, this is like we're being punished by God. But no, when you're looking at yoga or immanence, you're looking at a lesson. There's the whole point of this is for you to remember who you are, and we need that friction. Friction doesn't come from a peaceful life. You know, if we were just to come to earth and skip around holding hands and eating mangoes and like nothing bad ever happened, then we would not find the depth of who we really are. It's like Shanti says, we come here to learn who we're not. You know, we need that friction, that polarity to understand. We need the darkness to understand the light. We need the karma, or the friction, the work to understand, to remind us God's already there. You were born with God. You're Genesis 1:3. God said, let there be light. The Hebrew word for light meant divine spark. So in Genesis 1:3, God said, let there be you. Let there be you.
Yeah,
You were
absolutely.
already a part of that. And so yoga is reminding you of that. I'm going to read you from book two, the second pada, sadhana pada, and all sadhana mean is devotion. Sutra 5. Ignorance is regarding the impermanent as permanent, the impure as pure, the painful as pleasant, and the non-self as the self. So what does that mean, the non-self as the self? Well, when you start to observe yourself and you're able to come to a place of being the watcher, of watching your life, you realize that all these things that are happening to you are actually happening for you
Yeah,
to
exactly.
remember who you are, that you're
Mm.
not these things. But you need, it's this, we talk about all the Shiva Shakti. Your body, this earth, this environment is the expression of your soul. It's not your soul, but it's the expression of your soul, if that makes sense. So you've, as Shanti said, you've created this whole experience for yourself to be able to know yourself. And
Yeah.
I like how it's like when you realize you're not the victim, when you realize that you're actually the perpetrator, that you actually did this for yourself, man, that's a powerful place to be.
I would like to change the word perpetrator, though, because we've got to realize as well how important the words are that we
Yeah.
use
Yeah.
in terms of that, because perpetrator immediately has
A
a
negative.
negative connotation. So you're not the perpetrator. There are actually no perpetrators. You would be the initiator.
Yeah.
You would be the coordinator. You would be the designer of your own experiences and your own life. You would
Yep.
have chosen these experiences. And as tight necked and as bottlenecked as some instances and sometimes in our lives can be, that I do believe is really the time where we get the opportunity to go so deep within, because it's those times that where I always recite and tune in to my favorite Bible verse, which is "Be still and know that I am God." So it's in those times that you at your tightest and you're at your most uncomfortable and you feel like there's just no way out in this corner. You're either going to implode, do something stupid that destroys you maybe or hurts yourself or something, or you're going to just go deep into spirit because you know the only way out is in. And then you observe your actions that got you there to begin with. And you have to know then that there is a way out and that the answers lie within. And that comes from a very strong spiritual connection. It's not a thought, it's a connection first, right? And then that connection kind of that energetic connection, that frequency then reverberates from the inner core and then translates that reverberation as a thought or a feeling or and a voice or a expression of some sorts then. But it
And you think,
begins with that.
we talk a lot, like Guruji Tabi Joyce used to say, yoga is mind controlling capacities, you controlling your own mind. It's about you. So what does that mean? We look at the second sutra of the first pada, which is Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha in Sanskrit. So Yoga Chitti, Chittam is the brain or the mind, Vritti is the thoughts, Nirodha is nothingness. Well, we can't take away all of our thoughts. We can't take the brain out. The brain is an organ, it's a vital organ. So what do we then do to find that nothingness? We then understand what our thoughts are and that they're not necessarily real, and that our thoughts, it's like vritti, when you take a pebble and you throw it into a pond and it skips on the pond, those waves that come out, those are vrittis. And so you think about your brain is like it's like an antenna. And so I have to go look this up. I meant to look this up the other day. There is a study recently done. It's like 99 or very high percentage of our thoughts that we have every day are on a repeated pattern, and they're subconscious. So we don't even
Yeah.
know we're thinking them. But when those thoughts occur, this energy is then coming out of us and down into us. That's why we call the body the mind field, because all these thoughts then program themselves into our body too. And so what starts to happen is the more that you become aware of this, the more you observe yourself, the more you can start to control that. You can start to course correct. And it's funny, and I'm not going to say the word, but the M word, the M ultra, what they do in the other side of this, yoga is proven to be one of the antidotes to that.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that
Yeah.
for a myriad of reasons, and I'd love to go into that as well. But I'd love to hear more from you on that first.
Well, because what's happening, you guys, what's happening, and Shanti is right, when that friction happens. So if we look at the yoga asana, so most people, when they think of yoga, they think of the postures. You see the postures, you see them all over social media. Now, the asana, as we call it, the asana practice is just one part of the practice of yoga. If you use the asana correctly, it's one of the most important tools. But if you use it incorrectly, it's not important at all. What do I mean by that? If you're using the asana practice just for gymnastics or ego purposes, not important. But if you're using the asana for the potency of, then it can be the most important tool, because our body is so real, and the pain that we feel in our body and the nervous system, that's the biggest GPS system we have to understand our repetitive thoughts and to understand where we're holding information. And I tell my students a lot, sometimes a repetitive thought, when there's a realization of it, is going to come across as an emotion. And so if we're looking at some of these postures, I'll give you guys an example. I've talked about this before. In my particular body, in my karma, my work, my hips are pretty open and my hamstrings are pretty open. They always have been. So like leg behind the head stuff, not that big of a deal for me. That's not something that super challenges me. Back bending, on the other hand, really challenging for me emotionally. And there is a posture in the second series of Ashtanga Yoga, Kapotasana, where you're on almost in like a shoe, a horseshoe. You're catching your feet in a back bend. And a teacher pulled me into it once, and I came out and punched him. He pulled me in, I came out of it, and I just smacked the teacher in the face. And the teacher took my arms and pulled me right back down again into the back bend. And so what I experienced was an immediate reaction to some energy being held in my body. And so for me, and Patanjali I'm going to paraphrase how he talks about this. When we're in a situation that is hard, that is bringing us to our knees, those come to Jesus moments, those crumbling tower moments in the tarot card deck, the tower moment, whether it's a back bend in Ashtanga Yoga, or whether it's a divorce, or whether it's a car accident, whatever that is, that's going to bring you to your knees, can be different for different people. In that moment, you're totally focused in the here and now. Your mind is not searching for different things. Your mind is focused. And in that moment, that's where God lives. You're focused there in that moment with God, and that connection to God. Now, when we look at the MK stuff, we know these people have been through horrific things to get to that point of mental disassociation. All right, coming from the brain of the mind. So if we can use this as an antidote to work with the body, to then start to release, it's going to be hell on earth for those people. Don't even think it's not going to be. It's going to be painful. It's going to be hard. But that can start to give them the Purusha in them, the seer, the watcher, because this brain in our head, this is nothing but a muscle. It's nothing but a vital organ, right? There's a great book out there written by a Hungarian psychologist. I cannot say his last name. It's like 10 consonants in a row. I'm not going to try to say his last name, but the book is called Flow. And it's one of the most fascinating books I have ever read in my whole entire life. I've read it multiple times. This guy did a study of all these different demographics of people, different genders, different ages, different ethnicity, different socioeconomic backgrounds, different jobs, to see what got people into a meditative state. Meaning that their brain started to settle into just being the brain and not taking over and controlling, right? That's that meditative flow. That's why it's called flow. Well, I won't get into that, but what I want to get into is when he starts to talk about the brain. The brain's job as a muscle is to be a problem solver. That's the brain's job, is to keep you alive. It's just like your heart's job is to also keep you alive. Your calf's job is to help you walk. It has a purpose in your physical anatomy. And if you notice, when the brain is left without anything to work on, it's going to start to replay bad events. So there was a higher rate of depression on the weekends. Why is that? Because when people go to work during the week, they have things to work on. They can keep their brain entertained and not focus on focus on.
She was saying the alpha flow state. Sorry, yes. I had the wrong one. Hey, Andy.
Yes, the alpha flow state. So when the brain has nothing to focus on, when the monkey mind starts to happen, what the brain is going to do, because that's its job, is it's going to start to try to solve a problem. So it's going to go back into the filing cabinet and find some incident that happened to you when you were 10 years old that hurt you, and it's going to pull it back up again to try to figure it out. And it's going to put you into depression. So that starts to show you what our minds can do if they're not controlled. But what yoga does, yoga takes it a step further because yoga says you can actually observe your mind. Your mind isn't you. You have a consciousness and you have a brain. Those things exist together in your body, but they're actually two different things. So if you can tap into that consciousness and understand your brain activity is just an organ, then you start to be able to reel it back and take control. So if we're looking at people who have been under that horrific MK stuff, when they start to now also almost like disassociate from the brain, I hate to use the word disassociate, but they start to understand the brain is actually been used and abused, like the heart can be or the liver can be, and that they are not that, and they can work through the karma created by that, then the power of that starts to dissipate. I hope that makes sense. It makes sense in my head. I don't know if it makes sense in other people's heads.
It totally does, because for me it really boils down to the simplicity of AI.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, artificial intelligence versus spiritual intelligence. And spiritual intelligence, when we discover who we are through certain practices. And yes, people are going to get there in different ways.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of what this life is about. And then that absolutely transcends the whatever else has been the MK altering or subtle mind construct or mind control or really just conditioning, but definitely with the understanding that the body is the expression of spirit while in physical form. So that's why the body is such an intelligent vehicle. Um, it is the most powerful, intelligent vehicle you could ever possess.
Yeah.
So when we realize that all the secrets lie within, all the knowledge lies within, we then start using the body as the barometer
Yeah.
for us to understand these things about ourselves. So it really is about understanding how important each and every organ of the body is, because every organ means something. Every organ has its own frequency. The body is, I think it's about 80% as women, our body consists of water, and I think
Yeah.
about 70% of men,
Yep.
So it is an emotional vehicle. It is the emotions are stored within the cells of the body. And when we understand that, and how many of us have had issues with emotions, for example, so when we understand that our illnesses in the physical body is a culmination of blocked emotions, really, that over time has
Impacted basically.
impacted, squished itself up, or whatever in every cell. The energy can't flow freely anymore, and that's what creates the illness on a physical level. However, everything is energy, and the body is designed to heal itself. This is what we know. So when we understand, that I got in the way of my own self by creating that, because that's my body's way of telling me something, right? So when we then start looking into the illness or the imbalance, right, or the dis-ease in the body, we can then, that's exactly where we're going to find the healing too, because you're going to see it's always an emotion, always
Always.
emotions, mental fragmentation, for want of a better word, um, that is creating any illness or malfunctioning in the body. And I don't profess to have it all, but I certainly have understood that, and I certainly have applied quite a bit of that to myself and a lot of the people I work with. So I do know that when we understand that, and that the healing lies within, you are your own healer,
Yeah.
you are your own watcher, you are your own divine connection to God, to spirit, to source creator, whatever people choose to call it, you know. So let's say when we remember we are directly connected to God, then we know
Mm.
nothing is impossible. And
Absolutely.
then we're willing to look at the issues that have blocked us and stopped us from living a full life. And then when we get to that point and we can observe that and go, okay, you see, this again is the watcher, right? So just by being the watcher, we become the healer, don't we?
Yes.
Because when we observe, we take responsibility, and that taking of responsibility heals the situation, heals the issue, dissolves what it needs to.
And I say all the time, like, and I've said this to people too. Yoga asana, so the yoga postures are obviously designed for this. It's designed for this practice. However, you can take this philosophy and apply it to anything.
Everywhere. Yeah.
Anything. You can apply it if you want to look at the exercise. You can apply it to observing yourself, practice observing yourself while running, the thoughts, the emotions coming through, doing gymnastics, doing bar. You can bring it into your job, your corporate job, what's triggering you. And it's funny, if we look at the yoga asana, I tell students all the time, and I mean this, and I just talked about this with Catherine on the last show I did with her. um, ugly yoga ugly yoga, like the real sloppy asana practice, that's the best kind of yoga, because that's where it's interesting. It's not interesting to see someone have a clean practice. You don't want to watch. I've been doing this for 16 years. You don't want to watch me practice. Like, I've in the beginning, it would have been real interesting. And and so I think if we start as a society, and that was one thing that was so liberating for me when I first really started studying the philosophy, was this idea of what karma really is, and that it's just an opportunity of growth. God's not punishing you. God doesn't punish you. God loves you. That's schizophrenic to think that God's going to punish you and cast you to hell, but he loves you at the same time. No, no, no. Karma is not, it's just your work. It's just cause and effect. That's all it is. And I always say, when I was practicing before I went to India, and I would fly back and forth to Philadelphia to practice with David Grieg, who I love so much. He was just here back in Atlanta. I would watch him in the Mysore room and work with students. And the young girls that came in that, were cheerleaders or gymnasts, and they did asana really easily, he would work with them, but whatever, next posture. But when like a 60-year-old man would come in who was overweight and who couldn't touch his toes, that's when David got excited, because now we have something to work with. And to see him get excited over resistance, that's what that resistance is. I used to practice with a guy who was an amputee. He had a fake leg. And I practiced with him every day, so I got used to him. He had a very strong practice. But then David, the first time David walked in and saw this guy with an amputee, he got so excited, because it was like, okay, this is different. This is interesting. And even reading Ram Dass's books, and if something hard comes into your life, yes, you're going to feel the emotions of sorrow, grief, anger, but you also can observe those emotions. But as the observer, say, okay, plot twist. This is a plot twist. This is interesting. What is this? I'll never forget, Shanti, and I hope you don't mind me sharing this story. When you went through a break-in a couple of, however long ago it was, and you were telling me, I think we were offline, you were telling 1 year ago, you were telling me offline about it. And you said after the guy left and you were stepping on glass, and you said, I just sat back and I said, thank you. What are you trying to teach me? And I've shared that story with people. So if we can get to a place where when something like that happens and we go, okay, interesting. What are you trying? What are you, my higher self, trying to teach me, my lower self? What am I missing? What is this about? What is this really about? Because and we know this, Shanti, a lot of times things that happen to us, we can say we have we're scared of this or scared of that, but it really all boils down to some really basic stuff: abandonment, shame. Like, it's all gonna, if you keep going, why? Well, why are you afraid of that? Well, why are you afraid of that? And you keep pulling the layers back, it's gonna be some just pretty basic things that all humans, and okay, so fear of abandonment, that's something I think a lot of us struggle with. Well, then why are you afraid of being alone? Are you afraid you can't take care of yourself? And I've said it before, sometimes we have to get to a place where we feel so powerless to then feel powerful.
Yeah, totally. Dark night of the soul.
Yes.
You know, Mm. And that I think is such an important thing to understand as well. But how we deal with that is also dependent on how we experience life and our perception on life, and absolutely has a lot to do with our conditioning and our upbringing as well. So, for me, it's really the message I want to get across to as many people as possible around this is that when shit happens, it's a good thing.
Yes.
I know we tend to go into complete spin out and running away and desperate and trying
Why
to
me?
claw at solutions or people or those who can save us. But the bottom line is that those are the moments that we it's do or die now. Think about an athlete that's taking the blocks and is about to do the 100-meter sprint. I mean, he's got his starting blocks there and he's on all fours or whatever, and he's poised and just ready to go. You know, we kind of need to get there in order for us to change as well. And sometimes we need things forced upon us. Any chaos is change waiting to happen. So how are you going to deal with that chaos is either you're going to go, oh my, and drama and tell the world and fight and shout and go legal and demand and oh my goodness, so many people do that. Or we're going to go, hang on, what do I need to see through the situation? Take 10 minutes, take a walk around the block, take a breather outside on the patio or the balcony, take a walk in nature, whatever's available to you. Go and sit in the bathroom for 10 minutes and just breathe if you need to. But take a breather and align, pray, meditate. Ask your higher self, God, your creator, whatever it is that this situation is bringing you.
Yes.
Because when you do that, you automatically open yourself up to receiving. It's like suddenly click, the tap opens.
Yeah.
Or shall I say, the door opens, the door unlocks. When you say, okay, what am I yet to see? Click, then information flows in because you've now accepted something greater for your highest good is at work here. You're not being blinded by what's happening in the here and the now. And in that moment, as you click and open up and allow energy to flow, the truth, you're not necessarily going to get the answer in that very second. Hey, you might. That's
Yeah.
very possible. That's the aha moment. It might filter in, and suddenly you get a deposit in your bank account. Or suddenly your mom, who you haven't spoken to for 2 years, calls you up and says, I'm missing you, I want to talk. Or suddenly you get a promotion at work. Suddenly things just start aligning. But it doesn't mean that you now sit back and do nothing. You've got to actively work this now, right? It's like when you exercise in your body and you're keeping yourself in shape and in trim as we grow older, it's not about trying to look 25. It's about being the healthiest version of myself I can possibly be at this point in my life.
Yeah.
So that's why I like to be healthy. So it's a constant progression to keep myself that way. And that's exactly the same in our emotional life. We grow, we change, our partners grow, our partners change, life changes, experience change, our kids change. We can't expect to have the same thing now that we had 25 years ago and keep harping on the fact that you told me you'd never cheat on me. And in the last 25 years, you've cheated on me 17 times. Why are you lying to me? You know what I'm saying? At what point are you going to let that go? I'm using that as an example.
Yeah.
Everyone has their own example. So it's really about understanding life changes, we change, we grow. And when shit comes knocking at your door, just say, okay, What do I need to clear up? What do I need to clear in my life? What is not serving me? Where is change necessary? How do I move out of the swamp? What's holding me back? Why do I feel like a big truck that's stuck in the mud and the wheels are just going around and around?
Yeah.
Question yourself. Just ask yourself. And that's when you become the observer. When you ask yourself, you're ready to receive, and then you wait. But
It's
be
like
alert.
my friend Cindy said something interesting the other day. Without suffering, there is no mystic, right? Because with suffering comes the asking of the questions. If everything
Yes.
is just hunky dory all the time, you're not going to ever challenge the narrative or challenge the reality and ask the hard questions. So when those situations arise that bring you to the point of the pity party, of the why me's, of the all that kind of stuff, is where you can all of a sudden start to find the alchemy, start to find that way to transform. And without that, it's and that is what I really want to express, that because for me, as someone who grew up as most of our viewers grew up in a conservative Christian home, even though my family was not fundamentalist, um, you grow up thinking when bad things happen to you, you're being punished by God. But when you walk into this philosophy, this theory, all of a sudden there's such liberation because you're not being punished by God. You're given nuggets of gifts to know yourself. And I had someone tell me once that, and I don't know if this is true or not, but that every other life we live, we go from an active life to a passive life, to an active life to a passive life. So if I know I'm in an active life this life. So in my life, this life, a lot of shit has happened to me, but I've also grown leaps and bounds spiritually. And then next life, maybe a little bit more passive, where I can just rest a little bit and let the theory integrate more into that life. My sister and I, we grew up in the same household. She's had a very passive life where things have just been very easy. My life has been very active. And so we kind of see that when we can step back for a moment and kind of see it for what it is. That's
Yeah.
that what he was saying, the confusing the self with the non-self, being so addicted to the story of our suffering instead of
Yes.
actually questioning, why is this, thank you, what do I have to learn from this?
Yes.
It's when I was in high school, or as a kid in general, I had a lot of health issues. I had a lot of operations. I just had stuff happen to me, and I grew up in a very upper middle class family. I went to private schools, but stuff would just happen to me. Just health issues, all kinds of stuff. I also grew up seeing things. I know Shanti and I have that in common, where I could see things others didn't. So you get labeled like the weird kid, because I could see ghosts, I could see angels, all that kind of stuff. Well, I remember my mother used to just laugh and say if it wasn't for bad luck, Brice would have no luck. But then I look back on the life and I think, no, all those things that were bad were actually conditioning me to the life I would live as an adult, which is nothing like the life that my friends growing up are living. I mean, the fact that I lived in India, like no upper middle class white girl from Georgia goes and just leaves and goes to India to live. Like that's not, but because of that friction, I was always questioning, even in my early 20s, even in college, university, through before I went to India and I was working out in Los Angeles, I was always still questioning things because things had been hard. And that's what propelled me into deeper experiences and deeper studies. And so, no, actually, if it wasn't for good luck, I would have not had any luck because all those things that were perceived as bad, I look at them now as, holy crap, I was so lucky as a kid to experience that because I'm living the life that I love right now, and I'm exploring things now, and I can. And so, if we change our perception, we change the way that I see everything bad that's happened to me as a gift because it
Hmm.
puts me into a different trajectory.
Absolutely. That's exactly the thing, It's like any negative experience or bad relationship or something that drains your energy, because there's two basic, let's call it emotions for layman's terms: love and fear. Love has no opposite, okay? But let's just, for our human purposes, our brains can wrap themselves around. So from love, everything positive sprouts. Okay? Everything joyful, creative, amazing, whatever. From fear, everything negative comes. So you are drained of all these things. It's the opposites of each other, not in huge quantum physical ways. I'm talking about just so that we can understand it. Okay. So, what I'm saying then is what you want to do is sit with yourself and ask yourself, what is bringing you joy? And here's a tip, let it not be about another unless it's a child of yours or an animal of yours. Okay. But in a limited way, what is bringing you joy? What are the things that make you happy? All of these things, and what is not serving you at this point, whether it's emotions, situations, people, whatever. Just start by identifying that. Because the minute you can actually start just identifying, and that doesn't mean that people are responsible for your unhappiness. I know we think that. I know we create that. And I say create, that word is very well chosen. We do create that. And when we realize that we're creating it, the empowerment here is that we can uncreate that as well and recreate a different experience. And I'm not talking about magic voodoo sticks or whatever the hell people think it is. It really is by stepping back, realigning with your intention. What is your intention here? What do you want? Where have you gone wrong? Where have you sabotaged yourself? Where have you had false ideas about who you are and therefore projected them onto others? You see, it's a whole beautiful journey of self-study. And
Well, can
self-study, yes,
I
is
was going to give
such an
you
amazing.
I'll give you an example of what Shanti is saying. It's kind of comical actually because she's not talking about like voodoo or anything like that. I've talked about this a couple times on my channel, but what I'm going to tell you guys, when I was 17 years old, I had spinal surgery. That's why backbending is so emotionally challenging for me and has been. And at 17 in the 90s in Georgia, yoga was not, it was just kind of starting to be a thing. I didn't know much about it. And I remember after that surgery, my doctor told me that after the surgery was over, that I should be fine. I just would never be able to play golf or do yoga. So he told me I would never be able to do yoga. I took that. I could have taken that knowledge and just gotten crippled and never looked at that, and the back would have been bad. But not only did I, thank you, not interested, and get into yoga and start to heal my back and start to work through whatever energy was causing that need to have surgery, but I'm now the only female in the state of Georgia authorized to teach Ashtanga yoga. So LOL, talk about that kind of karma. But also that what Shanti's talking about is making that decision. And at 17, I don't think I was even aware at 17 that I was making that decision. At 17, I wasn't interested in getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning for Brahma Muhurta to do yoga, but it propelled me into that, then questioning everything. And it brought me to a place of healing. So if I had just believed the narrative and fallen into the suffering without questioning the suffering, I would not have had the experiences that I then had by questioning it, by changing the trajectory of that weakness that was energetically. We all have it, whether it's your back, your knees, your gut, your shoulder, whatever it is. We all have some weakness. That's something that's emotional. It
Yeah.
manifests somewhere. And so that's what, yeah, because when you're saying that, I was thinking, yeah, that's what happened with my spine. And now I have worked through a lot in my spine. Now I can easily do Kapotasana no problem because I've actually worked through it. I've actually worked through all those emotions. Now, yes, sometimes things do still come up again. Little remnants of it will come up again. But you can, okay, thank you. Let's every time my back gets a little sore now, I go, okay, I need to work this differently. Something still needs to be healed. Let me reinvestigate. Let me go back on my mat. Let me observe myself during the day. I need to reinvestigate.
You see, what's also beautiful about taking this, because everything starts with energy, right? Frequency, sound, vibration. We know that we are created from that. And every person's body is a culmination of their frequency, their energy, and their unique experiences in life and in their life and in their karmic path. Just because we all have eyes, nose, hands, legs, whatever, all look the same in our pretty little meat suits, it doesn't mean that our life experiences or the inner workings of our body is the same. So, what's really beautiful about yoga, and for me, that's why I'm actually quite, I only started doing yoga pretty late in my life. I was about 47 or 48 when I only started doing yoga, you know? So, what was really amazing about that is that I already had then a full-on spiritual practice, and I was a healer. I was working with kids, and I understood this beautiful spiritual message and the alchemy around that, and how we can transmute these energies and how we need to transmute these energies in the body. So for me, yoga was the next step to taking this through the body and working with the healing through the body, because by then we understand every body, every part of the body means something. Like Brice, when you're looking at you, you had issues in the spine. Hello, guys. What is the spine? Support. Let's look at what the spine does in the body. It supports the body, it supports the entire frame, the structure. So the minute you're having issues in the spine or in the back or something, there will always be something around not feeling supported. Now, however it can play out in everyone's life is irrelevant, really. And what happens is we get caught up in all of these things that are happening and this and that and the next thing. But when we really go back and take the shortcut there, let's go for the bullseye here. We don't have to go 20, 19, 18, 17, blah, blah, blah. We go for the bullseye, right? We're going to go for the bullseye. And the bullseye would be, in that situation. Let's look at, for example, in my situation, right breast. Okay, that's where I had my issues. So, breast, what is the breast? The breast is nurturing. Think about what a woman's breast is. We feed our children, we feed from the breast. So, the breast is always nurturing. Right side is masculine side. So, I had a big issue around masculine nurturing. Okay, so now how does one define that? Yes, how did it translate in my life? It translated in the sense that a lot and most of the relationships I attracted into my life were about betrayal. There was betrayal involved. So I became very angry at men until I realized it wasn't men I was angry at. It was my own masculine energy that was not in line with the God as the male, and to realize that there are so many men in this world who want the best for women. They are in touch with their intuitive side. They are not this, they are not that, they're not there. My perception around male energy had to change. And as it changed, I met more and more amazing, honorable men and women in my life. So, what I'm saying is, when we start looking at how the body, and that's exactly how I healed my body. So, when I got that, my body healed itself. So, you don't have to go out and try and heal your body. Actually, yes, you do need to support your body. Obviously, many of us have physical bad habits. You've got to obviously look at food as your medicine.
Mhm.
But when you get what you've stopped yourself with,
Yeah.
then the healing, it's like boom, the knot unknots and bush, the energy flows. And within moments, the body has healed itself.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, that's so funny you say that because every time my lower back will start to hurt, that's exactly what I ask myself, Shanti, is like, where am I feeling vulnerable? Where am I feel in my life? Where is something not, and I work through it in my practice and I work through that in my mind. And it's interesting. I had my spinal surgery as a child the year my father left us. And the minute I started studying the chakra system, I was like, oh, that makes sense.
Yeah,
There it
the
is.
support. Because if you
Yes.
look at the spinal backbone, he was the backbone in the family, he was the backbone in
Yes.
the house. Suddenly that was gone. The fear around dad leaving at whenever it was then created a fracture in the energy, not necessarily of your spine physically, but it
No.
would have
Yeah.
started with a fracture. And if that fracture wasn't healed and looked after, it was going to keep attracting some kind of a damage,
Yep.
both spiritually or energetically as well as physically, to the point that your body then couldn't hold it anymore. And because you were ignoring the signs, not that you knew any different at the time, but in hindsight is a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
So you weren't dealing with the fact that your dad didn't leave you, for example. He left the marriage or whatever. And maybe this remembering that this was your choice to go through your life at this stage, and to understand whatever it was, because we have these contracts with spirit, we
Yeah.
have these agreements with spirit before. And when I say spirit, guys, I mean God. Okay, before coming to earth, we have these sacred contracts with each other. This is when we talk about, you know um, we choose. You don't choose when you're 6 years old to be abused. Of course
No.
not.
Yeah.
But your spirit or your soul is definitely not an infant. Your soul knows what it needs to learn and do in order to grow and expand. And those bottleneck moments in life, and very often that's us in our childhood, because we have no control in our childhood, right? Especially those of us who understand SRA and abuse and stuff like that. You have absolutely no control. The violation is on another level, the betrayal is on another level. And that's why, Brice, it's what you say, I think with the yoga as well. I highly recommend, when people are in need of healing, that have been very traumatized, especially with SRA, stuff like that, to do stuff like yoga or some kind of a physical exercise, because to get that feeling of being in control of your body, to start doing push ups, to start touching your toes, to learn how to do uh, I don't know, whatever, chaturanga, downward dog, just to get the flexibility and to feel good in your body,
Yeah.
is a very, very, very healing practice. So it doesn't have to be yoga if your religion doesn't allow. Then do Pilates, do
Yeah.
do
Bar class,
Zumba, yeah,
ballet.
do
Yeah.
Zumba, do
There's
ballet.
so
Yeah,
much. It's the whole, because the body is still. And it's funny you say that, because yeah, as you're talking about that, I'm gonna be a little bit more vulnerable. My father left the house at 17. He did leave us. I don't have a relationship with him today, but leading up to that point, he was never really there anyway. Like, and I can recognize that looking down at my childhood, that my father never was really available for my sister or me. Like, he was never really, and he always treated us like he had his parents, his sisters, his nieces and nephews. That was his family. We were just guests. We were just guests that got to go there, which was different from my mom's family. But as an adult, I can look back at that and realize that I had gone through all of this feeling not good enough for my father, to the point where he left, and then boom, I had to have back surgery. But then what transpired after that is I went through extremely abusive relationships. I almost lost my life one night in my early 30s, with an abusive. I got strangled one night, and that put me into trauma therapy. And I would not trade, at this point in my life, I would not trade that for the world. What my father gave me was one of the biggest gifts he could have given me. And that was by him not being available. Because through trauma therapy, through yoga, through everything I've done and studied in spirituality and the big questions I've asked, I've learned more about myself than I ever would have if my father had been
exactly.
active. I actually, after I got through trauma therapy, after I started doing EMDR, I was like, holy shit, I'm actually a really cool person. Like, I started to find this acceptance and love of myself that I didn't feel, because I was always trying to do something. What I was doing was always trying to do something to keep my dad, to have a dad. But the dad that I chose, the agreement I made with him in this life, was that he would not be my dad. And that was what I wanted from that, so that I could get to where I am now. And I would never trade that for the world. And so that's the power, though. We always sit in this like doom and gloom of self-pity. Oh, why me? Why me? Why is this happening? But if we can see these nuggets of hardship as actual gifts, like I said, I do not have a relationship with my father at this moment. I made the choice in trauma therapy to just say thank you. Thank you for giving me life. Peace be with you. I'm going to go over here now, and I'm so grateful. I have a great stepfather that my nephews and my nieces love, and I feel sorry for he's got wounds that he's obviously got wounds too that he's just not dealing with. And my grandparents, my dad's parents were amazing growing up. It didn't hinder my relationship with them. They were always there for us. My dad's parents, always there for us. And so I hope that I hope as we move forward in this timeline that we can start to see, as the watcher, as the observer, we can start to see these little hiccups in our lives as not bad luck, but good luck. Because it's giving you a choice. You come to this like place where you're at a crossroads, where you can either decide to wallow in self-pity that everything's wrong, or you can try to turn down this path and see everything is right. It's like, what did Albert Einstein say? You can see life in two ways. I'm paraphrasing, that everything's a miracle or that nothing's a miracle.
See God in everything, or you see the devil in everything, know? So it really is. It truly is. And, I think more, and we are looking at the time and I can't believe
I know
how quickly time flies on these shows that we do. But it's so true, because, when we talk about just accepting what that is beyond your control. Okay, I'm not talking about what's in your control. If you're in a situation and you know that you need to get out of it because it's not working for you, whatever the case might be, you need to make the plans and start getting out, because do what's physically doable for you. There are certain things that are not in your control. You're not able to control whether someone stays or goes. You're not able to control whether someone lives or dies. You're not able to control, anything that another person does. But, and when we can get that and realize that every person's action that directly affects us is an opportunity for us to look deeper and for us to heal our own inner wounds. And in that way, we can start doing the reflection that is necessary, and the observation, the watching, become the own watcher and realize, oh, my temper's raising. Let me just cool down. I can feel that familiar boiling blood feeling. Let me just take a breath and not charge off into argument now, but let me rather go to the bathroom, wash my face, wash my hands, count to 10, and see how I want to deal with that when I get back, type thing. We can start, that's how we start changing the way we do things, is by being conscious of our actions, and then understanding, of course, it's like we're going to be automatically wanting to go back to our normal default, but then to catch ourselves through awareness. And that's the awareness that enables us to change our patterns or change our actions or change our behaviors. No one says you're going to get it right in the moment.
No.
And then ultimately, that's how we heal those misperceptions, because that really is what it is, misperceptions. Yeah.
And I'm so glad you said it. Let me just clarify what she said. When you start going down this journey, you're gonna fuck up a lot. Like, there's gonna be times where you're gonna like, okay, I recognize this is happening, but man, I just want to scream, and you're gonna scream, you're like, oh crap, but the fact that you're even recognizing it is starting to change everything. And that's my challenge to everyone. Like, I always talk about this with Ron Doss, when something out of the blue happens, some friction happens in your life, instead of just immediately freaking out, can you sit there and go, oh, interesting. There was a girl on TikTok, a video was going around, and she was calling this a life hack, that anytime something, like say your boyfriend breaks up with you, instead of freaking out at first, can you go, oh, plot twist, and see it as just as a plot twist, like experience the emotion, but also be like, okay, I'm going to observe this emotion too. I'm not going to be like in it, swimming in it and just hugging it. I'm going to feel the emotion, but I'm also going to be like, plot twist. I see what you did, God. Okay, interesting. interesting plot twist. I don't know what's going to happen as a result of this, but I'm here for it. Let me work on myself. Let me see, so, and that's kind of the power that these Eastern, and then again, to reiterate for those in the back who didn't hear, when bad things happen to you, it's not because God is punishing you. It's because you've been given a nugget, an interesting plot twist to learn more about yourself and to, of
Absolutely.
course, correct. And I'm going to put you on the spot, Shanti, because I know we talked about this off camera, but I am putting up like little yoga practices on my channel for people. And I've asked Shanti if she would put up like a little 20-minute, 30-minute like beginner yoga practice for, if you guys want Shanti to do that, tell her down in the comment section. I'll share it on my community tab. I'm putting her on the spot.
Yes. Okay, she is putting me on the spot. But
Both
yes,
Chuck and I studied in India, so we have that connection, and no one's going to shoot it to you straight like an Indian teacher. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'll be happy to do that. Definitely. I actually teach an 8-week beginner course, which is nice because we start with do the Hatha yoga and the Shivananda lineage.
yeah,
So
so Shivananda,
yeah,
guys, if you watch my channel, the 3 traditional yogas are Ashtanga, Iyengar, Shivananda. So, and I
yeah.
don't know much about Shivananda is the one lineage. I know a lot about Iyengar, a lot about Ashtanga, obviously, but Shivan is the one that I'm not as well versed in. So let her know, guys, because she's a badass teacher. So
I'll give you a little beginner's routine. I've done, you see, here we go again. Now you're going to make me teach yoga on Zoom. I'm going, oh my gosh, I remember
listen, I've
that.
been doing it on Zoom with Stephanie. I have a course coming up starting November 20th. We're going to go do mostly philosophy, some asana stuff. But I've been blessed our friend Stephanie and Emmy's heart because they have allowed me to work with them on Zoom. And I keep wanting to stick my hands through the camera and adjust. But I've gotten
Well,
really
you know
good
what
at.
I'm gonna have a yoga student with me actually. So I'll actually have a student with me, and then I can work with the student and adjust. And I think I might
Perfect.
do that.
Perfect. I'm
Okay,
going to
well,
do that.
let us not give our. You already gave away the ring light secret, Brice. Seriously.
Secrets are no fun. Secrets are for everyone. um,
Yes.
No, I'm going to be doing that. I've had a lot of people ask me to put like a backbending tutorial up on my channel. And I believe it or not, because of all the struggles I've had with backbending, I'm a really good backbend teacher now. But there's no way that I can actually do backbends and teach at the same time. It's just not
Yeah.
physically going to be possible. So my friend Cindy, eventually I'm going to go up to there. I'm going to work with her and do the same thing and verbally teach while she's backbending so I could show things in the body while she's the one demonstrating. So that's how it's going to have to work with that. So yes, you guys, let Shanti know because I have a feeling her healing powers are just getting started. So
Ding dong. Wow. Gosh. Thank you. Thank you. Wow, guys and girls, another beautiful connection here with our beautiful Brice on what would be Wellness Wednesday.
on the Thursday.
But yeah, Wednesday was another day. Today is, we'll just call it Thriving Thursday.
I love it.
We're all thriving, yeah. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been awesome to have you here. Tune in again next Wednesday. I know we have one more chapter of Tartaria to do. So I know there's been so much stuff that happened. And I don't want to make
excuses.
Yes, I don't want to make excuses. It's like when I've been ready, Brice hasn't. When Brice has been ready, but we will do the last chapter of Tartaria. If not this coming week, then definitely in one of the weeks to come. But you will see us back on Wednesday afternoon anyway for Wellness Wednesday. And yes, love you all. And I'm seeing already some yeses here. Mm-hmm.
Oh, good. Look at that, Shanti. I knew I needed to put you on the spot because otherwise I don't know if you would have taken that time like to show people what a good teacher you are.
Ah, you're such a bad girl. You're so nasty. Now already you can see I'm gonna be up in arms. Everyone's gonna be up in arms, and next thing I'm gonna be accused of this, that, the next thing.
Listen, we've been accused of everything. If someone wants to call me a Victorian ghost child at this point, like they called the other YouTuber, I would laugh at that at this point. So It's just, when people call us names, it's just like, oh, plot twist, interesting. I've been called worse, so this is fine.
Big plot twists happening at the moment. So yeah, it's untwist with the plot because
Yeah.
really it's the plot untwisting. Maybe it's the plot untwisting, which is
Not going to stop us from sharing our knowledge. I don't want to say helping people because people are helping themselves when they do the practice and do this themselves, but it's not going to stop Shanti nor me from sharing what we've learned, because it's made such an impact in both of our lives. That's the good thing about this yoga stuff. Most people, what is it your teacher said? The man may fall, but the teaching won't.
yeah. And I mean, my Swami fell from grace literally after I did my teacher training in India. But I was just telling Brice yesterday, I think, when we were chatting, I said, one of his words to us, I think it might have been his second last lecture, was that the man may fall, but the teachings will always remain pure. So that is such, it's like he had a preempting, because he was a naughty boy, Swami was. But despite that, I tell you, that's why I say the teachings that I had, what my spirit gained in India over that time, and what he was teaching. Yes, did he apply them? No, clearly. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gotten in the trouble he did.
Yeah.
But he was still an amazing vessel for the truth. And I choose to see things like that in that way because it's true. So even if even if people say things and you don't like the person, but they've got a really good quote or they really have something meaningful to say, don't discard that.
Yeah.
God works in mysterious ways. You
Don't throw
know,
that baby out with the bathwater. Just throw the bathwater
yeah,
out, keep the baby. Yep.
totally. Okay, beautiful, Pricey. Is there anything you want to say just in ending before we wrap up for today's show?
My yoga course is starting November 20th. If you have questions, you can email me at yogacourseonline@gmail.com. Registration is up on my channel. Other than that, just we need to make t-shirts that basically say 2020 biggest plot twist of the human cycle or something. It's interesting, right?
Plot and twist. It's plot
Untwist,
and
untwist.
twist. Untwist. Plot
Yes.
and Operation Untwist. We can call it like something
I like that.
different.
Operation Untwist. I like that. I like that.
We're all on Operation Untwist. All this twisting, concocted, nasty frequencies that have been twisted and contorted and inverted. We're just untwisting them. So it's Operation Untwist, just untwist. It's like unplaiting hair, just
Yeah.
like imagine that's happening in your body and just, yeah, it's lovely. Thank you guys. Love you all. Mwah. Take good care. Like, share, subscribe, do all the wonderful things. Thank you so much. See you next week.
Bye, guys.